Ben Stiller. Welcome to the Smithsonian, the world's largest museum and research center. Did you know that the Smithsonian was founded by a British scientist named James Smithson, who never set foot in America? And that the Smithsonian now houses over 136 million objects? And that no matter how nice you are to the museum guard, they will not let you touch the exhibits, even if you're super famous? Let's just say I found that out the hard way. Ouch. But seriously, the Smithsonian is an amazing place. It doesn't display just anything. Every single item is important, having special significance in art, science, history, and culture. It's a hall of fame of everything that matters. For example, this portrait of this gentleman is extremely important. That's why it's here. Why is it important? Because this man was important. What his name was and what he did is a mystery that I will solve at some point before this introductory film is over. But perhaps my favorite historical thing here is this, the Starship Enterprise. You can't touch that either. They're not kidding around. Now, a lot of people think the castle, the building you're in now, is the Smithsonian, but it's way bigger than that. It incorporates 19 museums, each of them alive with stories. Let's take a look at some of them. Surrounding the castle are 3 art museums. The Freer and Sackler galleries specialize in American and Asian art. Here you can see that Whistler painted much more than his mother. A London businessman once commissioned him to design an entire room. Whistler went to town on it and created the famous Peacock Room. Only one problem: the businessman hated it. So the Smithsonian got another masterpiece. The National Museum of African Art tells the story of the cradle of humanity through masks and other visual arts. At the Hirshhorn Museum and Sculpture Garden, you can tap into the imaginations of modern and contemporary artists. One sculpture, called Antipodes, has a secret code that not even the CIA has cracked. Next door to the Hirshhorn is the entire history of aviation in one building. Every year, 7 million visitors walk through the doors of the National Air and Space Museum. That's more people than the population of Virginia or New Jersey.
The world's first airplane, the Wright Flyer, and the Spirit of St. Louis, the Bell X-1, the first airplane to fly faster than sound, and the first spacecraft to take an American into orbit.
Almost everything here is from the 20th century, a short period of astonishing innovation.
Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed. Roger, 20.
Big as it is, the Air and Space Museum eventually ran out of space. Enter the Stephen F. Udvar Hazy Center, about 30 miles from downtown D.C. near Washington Dulles Airport. Its main hangar is nearly as long as 3 football fields, big enough to contain 80 aircraft and 35 spacecraft, including the Space Shuttle Enterprise. And no, this is not Captain Kirk's first ride. The newest addition to the Smithsonian is the National Museum of the American Indian. Its design was inspired by natural rock formations in the American West. The collection here is a window on the world before and after Columbus. It also has one of the best cafeterias in Washington, D.C. It offers dishes from native peoples across the continent. Across the street from Union Station is the National Postal Museum, which traces American history through its mail. It also has some of the rarest stamps on the planet. Just up the road are 2 museums in one building: the National Portrait Gallery in the Smithsonian American Art Museum. Here, you can hang out in one of Washington's most beautiful courtyards, then see up close how conservators restore and preserve priceless works of art. The Hall of Presidents is home to one of the Smithsonian's greatest treasures, the Lansdowne portrait of George Washington. All the presidents who followed have tried to live up to his legacy.
You really can see the weariness and the intensity of such a bright man.
I like his little crazy hairdo up like this.
It's just a very powerful image. It really captures the essence of his presidency.
Nowhere else can you look our leaders in the eye and come away with a better sense of who they were and what they accomplished. Most of us think of the Smithsonian as a place to store and display America's treasures. But it's much more than that. Conservation and research are at the core of its mission. The National Museum of Natural History is the largest research museum in the world. Walking in here, it's easy to get swallowed up by the oldest and biggest and most amazing things in the universe.
He's so big! Look!
Who knew that an elephant's trunk has 50,000 muscles? But what goes on behind the scenes is just as amazing. Making dead animals this lifelike requires a mix of science and art.
If I want to give this bird some attitude, I can flare these feathers up, making him a little more aggressive. And I can change the attitude of the bird just by playing around with things like this.
There are experts here on everything from giant squids to deadly spiders to blood-sucking leeches. On any given day, curators here are making new discoveries about the wonders of nature.
We thought we would do some work to explain how a hippo can wiggle its ears, and they can really wiggle them a lot.
The research isn't confined to the museum on the Mall. Scientists at the National Zoo are finding the secrets of breeding endangered species. And at international centers like the Smithsonian Tropical Research Institute in Panama, experts are uncovering the impact of global warming and other forces that have changed our planet over millennia. Science, art, history, culture, it's all here. But the Smithsonian also has a special mission to tell the story of America. The National Museum of American History holds over 3 million artifacts. Muhammad Ali's boxing gloves, Jackie Kennedy's inaugural gown, Edison's light bulb, and of course, the original Star-Spangled Banner. If it had an impact on America, it's probably here. The collection honors the nation's triumphs and also its tragedies. One look at this hat and you know who wore it. On the night of Abraham Lincoln's assassination, it was saved and turned over to the Smithsonian 2 years later.
When you actually look at this hat and it has an individual character, it really humanizes Lincoln. He was a real man, and that connection is what objects can give us.
The museum does more than collect America's treasures. It preserves and protects them. Take perhaps the most popular item here, the ruby slippers from The Wizard of Oz. When they're not on display, they might be being cleaned, one sequin at a time. A handheld microscope can reveal the secret behind the shine.
You can see that there's a netting underneath the sequins, and it was just a normal shoe, and they put the netting over it to allow them to stitch the sequins into the piece.
Just working your way around the museums on the Mall can take up more than one visit to Washington. But the Smithsonian doesn't stop there. Up the street from the White House, the Renwick Gallery celebrates American crafts and decorative arts. In Northwest DC, the National Zoo is home to 400 different species. From something called a sloth bear to monkeys that look like lions. And right here, on the last prime real estate on the Mall, the Smithsonian will soon be breaking ground on the National Museum of African American History and Culture. As you can see, this is an amazing place with a million stories to tell. While you were watching that video, I even learned about who this guy is. His name was Millard Fillmore, and he was the 13th president of the United States. And he did a lot of amazing things that I'm not going to get into here because I don't want to rob you of the joy of learning for yourself, as I mentioned before. But I do know those things. They're in my head. The point is, you should get out there and explore, because at the Smithsonian, the possibilities are endless.
What was that?
I'm sorry, I thought you guys were gonna add that effect where like the Smithsonian flies out of my hands with stars and comets and flies magically. No?
No.
Okay. Okay, then can we redo that? Because I think it might look weird. Just also with the casts, that might feel just like. It's a great place. What are you doing looking at me? Get out there, start checking stuff out. Come on. The bus is leaving in a few minutes.